Emily Carter never imagined she would be standing on the sidewalk with two small backpacks, holding her children's hands, while strangers walked past as if she didn't exist. Just hours earlier, that apartment behind her had been her home. Now the door was locked. The notice on the wall was clear, and she had nowhere to go. What Emily didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have known, was that before the night was over, she would begin a journey of 36 kilometers on foot, carrying her two children through hunger, exhaustion, and fear. And somewhere along that road, when her strength was gone, a man dressed in white would walk beside her in silence. This is not a story about money. It's not even a story about homelessness. It's a story about what happens when you reach the end of yourself and discover you were never walking alone. Before we continue, take a moment and ask yourself this question. What is your 36 kilometers right now? What road are you walking that feels too long, too painful, too heavy to finish? If stories like this help you hold on to faith when life feels unbearable, consider subscribing to Heaven Walks with Us. Here we share real-life inspired stories of ordinary people who encountered hope in their darkest moments. Stories that remind us that heaven is not as far away as we think. Leave a like, subscribe, and stay with us. Because Emily's journey is only beginning. It was a Tuesday afternoon on the outskirts of Columbus, Ohio. The sky was overcast, the kind of dull gray that made everything feel heavier than it already was. Emily Carter sat on the concrete step outside her apartment building, staring at a white piece of paper taped crookedly to the door. Notice to vacate. The locks had already been changed. Emily was 31 years old, a single mother. She worked cleaning houses during the week and picked up shifts at a small diner whenever she could. It wasn't much, but it had been enough until it wasn't. 3 months earlier, everything had started to unravel. First came the cough, then the fever, then the hospital visit that lasted longer than she could afford. Pneumonia, the doctor said. Severe. She missed work, lost clients. Medical bills arrived faster than she could open them. Rent went unpaid, then late, then overdue. And now it was over. Beside Emily were two worn backpacks, the last pieces of her life that hadn't been taken away. Inside them were children's clothes, a stuffed rabbit with one eye missing, a framed photo of her parents from better years, and a small pocket Bible she had kept since childhood. Her children stood close to her legs. Noah was 6, too quiet for his age. His shoes were scuffed through at the toes and his eyes carried a seriousness no child should know. Lily was 3. She clutched Emily's jacket, her fingers tight, her face smudged with dirt, and tears she didn't fully understand. "Mom," Lily whispered, tugging at her sleeve. "Are we going home now?" Emily closed her eyes. The smell of food drifted from another apartment. Someone cooking dinner, laughing, living a life that hadn't fallen apart yet. She knelt down, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We're going somewhere new, sweetheart," she said softly. "It's going to be an adventure." Noah looked up at her, searching her face. "Are we going to heaven?" he asked. Emily's heart cracked open. She pulled both children into her arms, holding them tighter than she ever had. "No, buddy," she whispered. "We're going to Aunt Rachel's house." What she didn't say was that Rachel lived in Delaware, Ohio, that it was more than 20 miles away, that Emily didn't have money for a bus, a ride share, or even dinner. She didn't say that shelters were full, that hotlines told her to call back next week, that her phone battery was nearly dead. All she had left was faith, and even that felt fragile. Emily stood up slowly, slid the backpacks onto her shoulders, and took Noah's hand. She lifted Lily onto her hip, adjusting her weight as best she could. The road ahead stretched long and unforgiving, disappearing into the distance. Emily looked up at the sky and whispered a prayer she hadn't planned. "God, I don't know what to do, but please protect my children. Give me strength to take the next step." Then she took one. She didn't know it yet, but heaven had already taken a step toward her. The first mile didn't feel real. Emily walked as if she were floating outside her own body, her mind refusing to accept what her feet were doing. Cars passed beside them, engines roaring, tires humming against the pavement. People were heading home from work, to dinners, to warm houses with lights already on. No one stopped. No one looked twice. Emily adjusted Lily on her hip, shifting the child's weight so her arm wouldn't go numb too quickly. Lily rested her head against her mother's shoulder, already warm and heavy, breathing softly. Noah walked beside her, his small hand wrapped tightly around Emily's fingers. His steps were careful, measured, like he already knew this road was not forgiving. "How far is Aunt Rachel's house?" he asked. Emily glanced ahead. The road stretched on, flat and endless, framed by dry grass and distant trees. "Not too far," she said gently. "We'll get there." It was a lie, but a necessary one. The afternoon sun pushed through the clouds and heat settled onto their backs. Emily could feel sweat forming under her shirt. Her sandals, already worn thin, slapped against the pavement with each step. After 20 minutes, Lily stirred. "Mommy, I'm thirsty." Emily's throat tightened. She stopped and reached into one of the backpacks, already knowing what she would find. The last bottle of water was nearly empty. She twisted the cap, measured the weight, and handed it to Lily. "Just a little sip," she said. "We'll save the rest." Lily drank obediently, then handed it back. Emily wiped her mouth with her sleeve and forced a smile. They kept walking. After another mile, Noah's steps slowed. He didn't complain. He didn't cry. But Emily could see it in the way his shoulders drooped, in the way his shoes dragged slightly against the road. "You okay, buddy?" she asked. Noah nodded, though his face told a different story. "I'm fine," he said. "I can walk." Emily felt a familiar sting behind her eyes. She remembered being that age, being strong because there was no other choice. They passed a gas station. Emily checked her pockets. Empty. She stood there for a moment, watching people walk in and out with drinks, snacks, coffee cups steaming in their hands. She didn't ask for help. Not yet. The road narrowed as they moved farther from the city. Trees thickened, traffic thinned. The sound of cars became occasional instead of constant. By the time the sun began to sink, Emily's legs burned. Her back ached from the backpacks. Lily was asleep now, her full weight pressing down against Emily's side. Noah stumbled once, then again. Emily stopped and knelt beside him. She slipped off his shoe and winced. The sock was damp with sweat, the heel rubbed raw. "It hurts," Noah whispered. Emily swallowed hard. She picked him up. Now she carried both children, one on each side, while the backpacks pulled at her shoulders like anchors. Each step felt heavier than the last. Her breathing grew shallow, her vision blurred at the edges. Still, she walked. As darkness began to fall, Emily searched the roadside for shelter. There were no houses. No open buildings. Just a concrete overpass ahead, its shadow stretching wide beneath it. She guided them there. The space smelled of damp earth and old rain. Trash lay scattered near the pillars. It wasn't safe. It wasn't clean. But it was dry. Emily laid her jacket on the ground and eased the children down. She wrapped her arms around them and whispered a prayer she had learned as a child, her voice barely audible above the hum of distant traffic. "Please, watch over us tonight." As she lifted her head, something made her freeze. Across the road, beneath a flickering streetlight, stood a man. He was completely still. He wore light-colored clothing that caught the glow of the lamp, almost white. He didn't move closer. He didn't speak. But he was watching. Emily's heart began to race, but strangely, fear did not come. Instead, a quiet, unexplainable calm settled over her, like a warm blanket in the cold. She blinked. The man remained. And though Emily didn't understand why, she felt deep in her soul that for this night at least, they were not alone. Emily didn't sleep right away. She sat upright beneath the overpass, her back pressed against the cold concrete pillar, arms wrapped tightly around her children. Noah curled into her side, his breathing uneven but steady. Lily slept deeply, her small hand gripping the fabric of Emily's shirt as if afraid to let go. The night air was damp. Somewhere nearby, water dripped in slow, uneven rhythms. Above them, cars crossed the bridge, their tires creating a low, distant roar that never fully faded. Emily lifted her eyes again. The man was still there. He stood across the road, beneath the same flickering streetlight, his figure unmoving. The light reflected faintly off his clothes, giving them a pale glow against the darkness. She waited for fear to rise. It didn't. Instead, something else settled into her chest. Something quiet, steady, almost comforting. It felt like the calm that comes after crying until there are no tears left. Maybe I'm just exhausted, she whispered to herself. She blinked hard, rubbed her eyes with the back of her hand, then looked again. The man had not moved. Emily lowered her gaze to her children, studying their faces in the dim light. Dirt smudged Noah's cheek. Lily's curls were tangled from sweat and sleep. They looked impossibly small against the vastness of the night. I'm sorry, Emily whispered, her voice breaking. I'm doing my best. She bowed her head and prayed, not with long words, not with certainty, but with honesty. If you're there, please don't let anything happen to them tonight. I can handle the pain. I can handle the fear. Just keep them safe. A soft breeze moved through the space beneath the bridge, gentle and cool. Emily shivered, but not from cold. She pulled her jacket tighter around the children. When she looked up again, the man was still watching. Not staring, watching, like someone guarding a door. Hours passed without her realizing it. Emily's body ached, her muscles trembling from strain. Her eyelids grew heavy, but each time she drifted toward sleep, she startled awake, checking the road, the shadows, the children. Eventually, exhaustion won. Her head slumped forward. Her grip loosened just enough for her body to surrender. She slept. When Emily woke, the first thing she noticed was the light. Soft, pale, morning. She gasped and lifted her head, heart racing. Noah and Lily were still asleep, curled against her exactly as she had left them. Their chests rose and fell in gentle rhythm. They were safe. Relief flooded her so quickly it made her dizzy. Emily turned her head toward the road. The street light was off. The space across the road was empty. The man in white was gone. She scanned the area, her breath shallow, searching for any sign she hadn't imagined him. Footprints, movement, anything. There was nothing. Just road, trees, silence. She exhaled slowly. I must have been seeing things, she murmured. Stress, hunger, lack of sleep. Her feet throbbed as she shifted her weight. When she stood, pain shot through her ankles and calves. She winced, steadying herself against the pillar. Careful not to wake the children, Emily stepped a few feet away and looked out at the road ahead. It stretched on endlessly, winding into a horizon she couldn't see. They had barely made a dent in the distance. She closed her eyes and whispered again, softer this time. Please, just give me enough strength for today. Behind her, Noah stirred. Mom, he mumbled, are we still walking? Emily turned back to him, brushing hair from his forehead. Yes, she said gently. We're still walking. She didn't know how far they would make it. She didn't know where the strength would come from. But deep inside, beneath the fear, beneath the doubt, something told her that whatever had watched over them in the night had not left. The morning air was cool, but it didn't last. Within an hour, the sun climbed higher, burning away the softness of dawn. Heat pressed down on the road, turning the asphalt into a dull, shimmering ribbon that seemed to stretch forever. Emily walked with her head lowered, counting steps without realizing it. 1, 2, 3. Anything to keep moving. Noah limped beside her now. He tried to hide it, tried to match her pace, but his left foot dragged slightly behind the other. Every few steps he winced, his jaw tightening in a way that told Emily more than words ever could. Let me see, she said, finally stopping. Noah shook his head. I'm okay. But when Emily knelt and pulled off his shoe, the truth was undeniable. The back of his heel was raw and blistered, the sock stained darker from sweat and blood. Emily pressed her lips together to keep from crying. I can carry you for a bit, she said, lifting him gently. No, Noah protested weakly. You already have Lily. Emily didn't answer. She simply stood, adjusted Lily higher on her hip, and lifted Noah into her other arm. His body was light, but not light enough. Not after miles of walking, not after a night on cold concrete. The backpacks pulled harder now. Her shoulders screamed. Her lower back burned with every step. She took one step, then another. Cars passed, some slowing briefly, others speeding up as if afraid of what they saw. Emily raised her hand once, then twice, but no one stopped. After 15 minutes, her arms began to shake. After 20, her vision blurred. Her legs felt like they were filled with sand. She stopped. Carefully, she lowered the children to the side of the road and collapsed onto the grass, gasping for air. Her chest tightened painfully, each breath shallow and sharp. "I'm sorry," she whispered, tears spilling freely now. "I'm so sorry." Noah pushed himself closer to her. "It's okay, Mom," he said, though his voice trembled. "I can walk again. I promise." Emily knew he was lying, for her sake. She wiped her face with the back of her hand and forced herself to stand. "Okay," she said softly. "Let's try." They walked again. Slower this time. The sun climbed higher and the road offered no mercy. There was no shade, no breeze, only heat, dust, and the sound of their own breathing. Lily began to cry. "I'm hungry," she sobbed. "My tummy hurts." Emily searched the backpacks one last time. Nothing. No snacks, no money, no water. She pulled the small Bible from her bag and held it against her chest, pressing it there, as if it might steady her heart. "I don't know what to do," she whispered. "I don't know where you are anymore." Her knees buckled. Emily sank to the ground again, her strength finally giving out. She sat on the edge of the road, head in her hands, shoulders shaking as she cried openly, for the first time since the journey began. "I can't do this," she said aloud. "I can't." A moment passed, then another. The road was silent except for the wind moving through tall grass. Emily lifted her head slowly, and then she felt it. A strange sensation, not pain, not fear, but lightness, as if the weight pressing down on her shoulders had eased just slightly. She looked up. Far ahead on the road, walking calmly, steadily, was the man in white. He did not look back. He did not hurry. But he was there, and something inside Emily shifted. She wiped her tears, pulled herself to her feet, and gathered her children once more. "I don't know how," she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. "But we're going to keep going." She took another step, and though her body was failing, something unseen seemed to rise beneath her, steadying her, supporting her, guiding her forward into the heat, the distance, and whatever waited at the end of the road. Emily had lost track of time. The sun hung directly overhead now, unforgiving and relentless. Every step sent a jolt of pain through her feet, up her legs and into her spine. Her breath came shallow, uneven. The world narrowed to the sound of her own heartbeat and the weight of the children in her arms. She didn't remember sitting down. She only remembered the moment when the road tilted slightly, when her vision darkened at the edges, and when she realized, terrifyingly, that her body was about to give up without her permission. She lowered Noah and Lily to the gravel shoulder and knelt beside them. "I just need a minute," she whispered, more to herself than to them. Noah leaned against her arm, his face pale. Lily's cries had softened into weak whimpers. Emily closed her eyes. "Please," she prayed silently. Just one small mercy. That was when she heard it, the low rumble of an engine slowing down. Emily opened her eyes and looked up. A beat-up pickup truck had pulled over a few yards ahead of them, dust settling slowly around its tires. The driver's door opened, and an older man stepped out. He wore faded jeans, work boots, and a baseball cap pulled low over gray hair. "Hey," he called out gently. "Y'all okay?" Emily's throat tightened so suddenly she couldn't speak. She shook her head. "No," she finally said, her voice breaking. "My kids are hungry. We're walking to Delaware. We just don't have anything left." The man studied them for a moment, really looked at them, at the bleeding heels, at the shaking hands, at the exhaustion written across all three faces. "Hold on," he said. "Don't move." He walked to the back of the truck and lifted the tailgate. From a small cooler, he pulled out 2 wrapped breakfast sandwiches and a couple of bottles of water, still cool to the touch. "My wife packed these for me this morning," he said, handing them over. "I think you need them more than I do." Emily took them with trembling hands. "Thank you," she whispered. "God bless you." The man shook his head slightly. "No," he said quietly. "God already did." The children ate slowly at first, then faster, as if afraid the food might disappear. Emily drank a few careful sips of water, feeling life return to her body inch by inch. For the first time all day, she felt something other than desperation. Hope. "I can take you the rest of the way," the man said after a moment. "It's no trouble." Emily looked at him, disbelief flooding her chest. "You don't know what this means," she said. "You have no idea." He smiled gently. "I've been lost before," he said. "I know what it looks like." Emily gathered the children, preparing to stand, when the man's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and his expression changed instantly. "I'm so sorry," he said, answering the call. Yes, yes, I'm on my way." He ended the call and looked back at Emily, pain etched across his face. "My mother-in-law just had a heart attack," he said. "I have to turn back right now." Emily felt the hope drain from her body like air from a punctured tire. "Oh," she said softly. "I understand." The man hesitated, clearly torn. "I wish I could do more," he said. "But listen to me. You're not alone out here. I don't know why, but something told me to take this road today." Emily nodded slowly. "I believe you," she said. The man climbed back into his truck, rolled down the window, and met her eyes one last time. "God's got you," he said firmly. "I promise." The truck pulled away, disappearing down the road in a cloud of dust. Emily stood there for a long moment, watching it go. Then she looked down at her children, fed, calmer, breathing easier. The road was still long, but they were still standing, and far ahead, barely visible through the heat and distance. The man in white continued walking, steady, unhurried, waiting for them to follow. The food helped. The water helped. But neither erased the distance still waiting for them. Emily wiped her hands on her jeans and lifted Lily back onto her hip. Noah stood slowly, testing his sore foot before nodding that he could walk again. The road lay quiet, shimmering under the afternoon heat, stretching farther than it had any right to. They stepped forward. At first, Emily walked in silence, listening only to the rhythm of their breathing and the crunch of gravel beneath their feet. The kindness of the man in the truck replayed in her mind. His eyes, his voice, the way help had arrived just before everything fell apart. "God's got you," he had said. Emily wanted to believe it. After another mile, the landscape opened up. Fields on either side, tall grass moving gently in the breeze. The air smelled of earth and sun-warmed leaves. For a moment, it almost felt peaceful. Then Noah stopped. Emily turned instinctively, ready to kneel, ready to carry him again. But he wasn't looking at his feet. He was looking ahead. "Mom," he said quietly. "Who's that?" Emily followed his gaze. There, farther down the road, was the man. He walked alone, his pace calm and even, his figure unmistakable against the open land. His clothing was light, nearly white, catching the sunlight in a way that made him stand out from everything else. He didn't look tired. He didn't stop. He simply walked straight ahead, as if the road belonged to him. Emily's heart began to pound. She told herself there was a logical explanation, a hiker, a traveler, someone heading the same direction. But deep inside, she knew that wasn't it. The man had been there in the night, and now he was here again, when the sun was high, when hunger and fear should have been louder than faith. "Do you see him?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Noah nodded. "Yes," he said. "He looks nice." Emily swallowed. The man never once turned around, yet somehow it felt as though he knew they were there, as if he were not leading by command, but by presence. They walked on. Minutes passed, then more. No matter how slowly Emily moved, the distance between them and the man never fully closed, but it never grew either. He remained ahead, always visible, always steady. And something strange began to happen. Emily noticed that her breathing was no longer ragged. The pain in her shoulders softened, not gone but muted. Each step still hurt, but it no longer screamed at her to stop. She looked down at her feet, expecting to see blood soaking through her sandals. There was blood, but it no longer defined her. Instead, she felt, strangely, balanced, as if something unseen were helping her carry the weight she had been dragging alone. They passed an old mile marker on the side of the road. Emily didn't know how many miles they had walked. She only knew they were still moving. The sun began to tilt toward the west, shadows growing longer across the fields. Emily glanced up again. The man in white was still there, unhurried, unafraid, waiting. And for the first time since this journey began, Emily realized something she hadn't dared to believe before. She was no longer just walking toward help. She was being led. The light began to fade sooner than Emily expected. One moment the sun still hovered above the fields, and the next it slipped behind the trees, pulling the warmth out of the air with it. Long shadows stretched across the road, and the breeze that followed carried a chill that settled deep into Emily's bones. They had been walking for hours. Emily no longer counted steps. Her body moved on instinct alone. Lift, place, breathe, repeat. Lily clung to her neck now, whimpering softly, her small body hot with exhaustion. Noah's pace slowed again, each step more uncertain than the last. "Mom," he said, his voice thin, "I'm really tired." Emily stopped and knelt in front of him. "I know, buddy," she whispered, brushing his hair back. "I know." She didn't need to look at his feet to understand. His eyes told her everything. They were glassy, unfocused, fighting to stay open. "I can carry you," she said again. Noah shook his head weakly. "You're already tired." Emily's chest tightened. She lifted him anyway. Now she carried both children once more, one on each side, her arms screaming in protest. The backpacks cut into her shoulders. Her legs trembled so badly she feared they would simply fold beneath her. The road ahead grew darker, no houses, no streetlights, just the faint glow of distant headlights passing far away on the highway. Too far to hear, too far to reach. Emily took a step, then another. Then she stumbled. She caught herself just in time, clutching the children tighter, her heart pounding wildly in her chest. "I'm okay," she whispered, though no one had asked. But she wasn't. Not anymore. Her vision blurred, the edges darkening as if night were closing in from the inside. Her breath came in sharp, panicked gasps. Each step felt disconnected from the one before it. She looked ahead, searching desperately. The man in white was still there. His figure glowed faintly in the dimming light, walking with the same calm pace as before. He did not slow. He did not turn. But he did not disappear. Emily wanted to call out to him. She wanted to ask who he was, why he was here, why he hadn't left them like everyone else. But no words came. Her knees buckled. Emily fell to the side of the road, sinking to the grass, still holding the children. She pressed her forehead to the ground, tears soaking into the dirt beneath her. "I can't do this," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I can't take another step." Lily stirred weakly in her arms. "Mommy, please," she whimpered. Emily squeezed her eyes shut. "I'm so sorry," she said, sobbing openly now. I tried so hard." The world felt impossibly quiet. Then, something changed. Emily felt it before she understood it. The weight in her arms lessened, not suddenly, not dramatically, but enough to make her lift her head in confusion. Her shoulders relaxed just a little. Her breathing slowed, just a little. She felt supported, as if invisible hands had slipped beneath her arms, steadying her. Emily opened her eyes. The road was still there. The night was still coming. The children were still in her arms. But she no longer felt alone in the weight she carried. She pushed herself up slowly, uncertain, trembling. And somehow, without understanding how, she stood. Emily took one step forward, then another. Her legs still hurt, her body still screamed for rest. But something stronger than pain was moving her now. Ahead, the man in white continued walking, closer than before. And though the night had returned, Emily realized she was no longer afraid of it. Emily no longer remembered deciding to walk. Her body moved forward as if it had been given new instructions. Gentler, steadier, quieter than pain. The road beneath her feet felt distant, almost unreal, like something she was passing over, rather than pressing against. Noah's head rested against her shoulder now, limp and unmoving. "Mom," she whispered, panic flashing through her chest. She shifted him carefully, listening for breath. It was there, shallow but steady. Exhaustion had finally claimed him. Lily stirred once, then fell silent as well, her small body slack in Emily's arms. Emily was carrying them both. She knew that should have been impossible. Her arms should have failed. Her knees should have collapsed. Her lungs should have burned until she couldn't draw another breath. But none of that was happening. Instead, there was a strange stillness inside her, like the calm center of a storm. Her heartbeat slowed, her breathing deepened. Each step landed exactly where it needed to. Emily lifted her eyes. The man in white was closer now, not far ahead, right there. He walked beside her, not touching, not speaking, yet somehow present in a way that made the darkness feel less real. His face was calm, his gaze forward, as if this road held no uncertainty for him at all. Emily felt tears slide down her cheeks, but she didn't wipe them away. "I don't know how I'm doing this," she whispered. "I know I can't." The night wrapped around them fully now. Crickets chirped in the grass. A soft wind brushed past her skin, cool and relieving, as if the air itself were offering comfort. And then she heard it. Not with her ears, but somewhere deeper. "Don't be afraid." The voice was gentle, steady, familiar in a way she couldn't explain. "I'm here." Emily's steps did not falter. She didn't look around wildly. She didn't question her sanity. She simply believed. Far ahead, faint points of light appeared. At first, Emily thought she was imagining them. Stars fallen too low, reflections in tired eyes. But the lights grew brighter, closer. Streetlights, houses, a town. Her throat tightened as realization washed over her. "We're almost there," she whispered, though the children could not hear her. "We made it." As the lights drew near, Emily felt the weight in her arms shift once more. Lighter still, as if she were no longer bearing it alone. Her feet barely seemed to touch the ground now. She crossed an invisible line, from darkness into glow, from isolation into promise. A rusted sign stood at the edge of the road, illuminated by a single street lamp. "Welcome to Delaware, Ohio." Emily stopped beneath the light. She lowered herself slowly, gently, and laid the children down on the grass beside the sidewalk. Noah stirred faintly. Lily sighed in her sleep. They were alive. They were safe. Emily pressed her forehead to the pavement and sobbed. Not from pain, not from fear, but from relief so overwhelming it left her shaking. "Thank you," she whispered again and again. "Thank you." When she finally lifted her head, the road behind her was empty. The man in white was gone. But the peace he left behind remained, warm, steady, unshakable. Emily stood and gathered her children one last time. The journey was not over yet, but the impossible part was behind them. The neighborhood was quiet. Porch lights glowed softly along the street, casting warm circles onto trimmed lawns and parked cars. It was the kind of calm Emily had forgotten existed. Orderly, predictable, safe. She stood at the edge of the sidewalk, children heavy in her arms, staring at a small blue house with white shutters. Rachel's house. Emily's hands trembled as she adjusted her grip on Noah and Lily. Her legs felt unsteady again now that the urgency had passed, as if her body finally realized what it had endured. She walked up the short path to the front door and stopped. For a moment she couldn't move. Fear crept in, the kind that comes after survival. What if Rachel wasn't home? What if she was asleep? What if Emily had misunderstood the message? The address, the hope. Emily raised her hand and knocked. Once, twice. The sound echoed too loudly in the quiet street. She waited. Footsteps approached from inside. A light flicked on behind the door. The handle turned slowly. Rachel opened the door halfway, confusion on her face. "Yes?" she said cautiously. Emily tried to speak. Nothing came out. Rachel looked at her more closely now. Really looked. And her eyes widened. She opened the door fully, one hand flying to her mouth. "Oh my God," Rachel whispered. "Emily." Emily nodded, tears spilling freely. "It's me," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm sorry. I didn't know where else to go." Rachel didn't hesitate. She rushed forward, helping Emily carry the children inside. The door closed behind them with a soft click that sounded impossibly final, as if something had ended the moment it shut. Rachel laid Noah gently on the couch and helped Lily into a pile of blankets. Both children slept on, unaware that the road had finally released them. Rachel turned back to Emily, her eyes filled with disbelief and concern. "What happened to you?" she asked. "How did you get here?" Emily sank into a chair, her knees giving out as soon as she sat. Her hands shook uncontrollably now, the adrenaline draining from her body all at once. "I walked," she said quietly. Rachel frowned. "From where?" "Columbus." The room went silent. Rachel stared at her, trying to process the words. "That's over 20 miles, she said slowly. "With the kids?" Emily nodded. Rachel covered her face with both hands, overwhelmed. "Oh, Emily, why didn't you call? Why didn't you tell me how bad it was?" Emily looked down. "I didn't want to be a burden," she said, "and my phone died." Rachel knelt in front of her and took Emily's hands. "You're never a burden," she said firmly. "Never." She stood and moved quickly, bringing water, clean towels, and a bowl of warm soup. Emily ate slowly, each sip grounding her further back into her body. After the children were cleaned and settled into a guest room, Rachel returned and sat beside Emily at the kitchen table. "Tell me everything," she said gently. Emily hesitated. Then she began. She told her about the eviction, the hunger, the night under the bridge, the man who stopped with food, the walking, the exhaustion. And finally, she spoke of the man in white. Rachel didn't interrupt. She listened quietly, her eyes never leaving Emily's face. When Emily finished, her voice barely a whisper, Rachel exhaled slowly. "You know," Rachel said after a moment, "I was praying for you last night." Emily looked up. "I asked God to protect you, wherever you were. I didn't know how he would, but I believed he would." Emily's chest tightened. Rachel reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You're home now," she said softly. "You're safe." Emily nodded, tears falling again, this time without fear. For the first time in days, she allowed herself to believe it. The road had ended, and a door, long closed, had finally opened. Emily woke to the smell of coffee. For a brief moment, she didn't know where she was. The ceiling above her was unfamiliar. The bed beneath her was soft, too soft for someone who had slept on concrete the night before. Then she heard it, Lily's laughter. Emily sat up suddenly, heart racing, until she saw her daughter standing in the doorway, wrapped in one of Rachel's oversized sweaters, smiling as if the world had never fallen apart. "Mommy," Lily said happily, "Aunt Rachel made pancakes." Emily's eyes filled with tears. She swung her legs off the bed slowly, every muscle protesting now that the urgency was gone. Her feet were wrapped in clean bandages. Someone had cared for her while she slept. In the kitchen, Noah sat at the table, sipping orange juice with both hands, his color already better. Rachel stood at the stove, flipping pancakes like it was the most normal morning in the world. "Good morning," Rachel said gently. "Sleep okay?" Emily nodded, unable to speak at first. She sat down, hands wrapped around a warm mug of coffee, letting the heat seep into her fingers. The children ate eagerly, safe, unaware of how close everything had come to breaking. After breakfast, Rachel pulled out her phone. "There's something you should know," she said. "Yesterday afternoon, before you even arrived, I got a call." Emily looked up. "From who?" "My neighbor, Mrs. Lopez," Rachel replied. "She helps manage the laundromat near Main Street." Emily felt a small spark of curiosity. Rachel continued, her voice careful. "She said she had a dream last night. She doesn't usually talk about things like that, but she was shaken." Emily's stomach tightened. "She told me she saw a woman walking on a road with two children," Rachel said slowly. "And beside them, a man dressed in white." Emily froze. Rachel watched her closely. "In the dream," she went on, "the man told her, 'She's coming. Be ready to help her.'" The room felt suddenly very still. Mrs. Lopez had called to ask if Rachel knew anyone who needed work. The laundromat was short-handed in the mornings. Nothing fancy, just folding, cleaning, helping customers. It paid hourly, enough to start again. "And she said something else," Rachel added quietly. "She said she felt like if she ignored the dream, she would regret it for the rest of her life." Emily pressed her hand to her chest. Not from fear, from recognition. Rachel reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You didn't arrive here by accident," she said. "Everything was already moving before you knocked on the door." Later that afternoon, Rachel drove Emily to meet Mrs. Lopez. She was kind, practical, and spoke with the confidence of someone who knew exactly why she was there. She showed Emily the small laundromat, introduced her to the machines, explained the hours. "You can start tomorrow," Mrs. Lopez said simply. "If you're willing." Emily nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I'm willing," she said. "I've never been more willing." That night, after the children were asleep, Emily stepped outside onto the porch. The sky was clear, stars scattered like promises across the dark. She wrapped her arms around herself and whispered into the quiet. "You were already there," she said, "before I even knew where I was going." The road had nearly broken her, but the path ahead, she realized now, had been prepared long before her feet ever touched it. Sunday morning arrived quietly. Emily dressed the children in borrowed clothes. Clean, a little too big, but warm. Noah buttoned his shirt carefully, serious as ever. Lily twirled once in front of the mirror, delighted by a dress that wasn't hers but felt like it could be. The church stood on a small corner lot not far from Rachel's house. White walls, simple wooden doors, nothing remarkable to anyone driving past. But to Emily it felt like sacred ground. They slipped into a pew near the back. The sanctuary smelled faintly of old wood and candles. Sunlight filtered through stained glass, scattering colors across the floor. Emily knelt and closed her eyes. She didn't know what to say, so she said the truth. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not letting us die on that road." Her hands trembled as she rested them on the pew in front of her. Images flooded her mind. The hunger, the night under the bridge, the weight of her children in her arms, the moment she should have collapsed but didn't. A soft movement beside her made her freeze. Someone sat down. Emily felt it before she saw it. The same calm, the same warmth that had wrapped around her on the road. Slowly, carefully, she turned her head. He was there. The man in white sat beside her, close enough that she could see every detail now. His clothing was simple, unadorned. His face bore lines of compassion rather than age. His eyes, deep steady, held a familiarity that made her chest ache. Emily couldn't breathe. She knew. Her heart knew before her mind could form the words. "Was it you?" she whispered, her voice shaking. "On the road, under the bridge. All of it?" He smiled gently. "You were never alone," he said. Tears streamed down Emily's face as understanding settled over her like dawn. "But I doubted," she said. "I was afraid. I thought I had failed my children." His voice was calm, unwavering. "You kept walking," he replied. "When your body wanted to stop, you trusted me with the next step. That was enough." Emily looked down at her hands. "I didn't feel strong," she admitted. He turned slightly toward her. "Faith is not the absence of fear," he said. "It is moving forward while fear is still present." Emily swallowed hard. "Why me?" she asked. "I'm not special. I don't have anything to give." He met her gaze. "You gave what mattered," he said. "You trusted when there was no reason to trust. You loved when love cost you everything." Emily felt something loosen inside her, something she had been carrying long before the road. "What happens now?" she asked softly. He looked toward the front of the church, where the cross stood bathed in morning light. "Now you live," he said, "and when someone asks how you survived, you tell the truth." She nodded, barely able to speak. "I will." He stood slowly. Before he stepped away, he said one last thing, quietly, tenderly. "I will always walk with my children," he said, "sometimes beside them, sometimes carrying them, always closer than they think." Emily blinked, and he was gone. The pew beside her was empty. The choir continued singing. The congregation prayed on, unaware of what had just unfolded. Emily bowed her head again, not in desperation this time, but in reverence. When the service ended, she stood, holding her children's hands. The road had changed her, but now she understood why. Emily didn't expect the past to find her. Not after everything that had happened. Not after the road, the church, the quiet rebuilding of a life that still felt fragile. 3 weeks had passed since she arrived at Rachel's house. Emily now worked mornings at the laundromat, folding clothes and wiping down machines while the hum of dryers filled the air. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. The children were enrolled in school and daycare. At night, Emily slept deeply, no longer haunted by the fear of waking up with nowhere to go. She was healing, or so she thought. One afternoon, as Emily stepped onto Rachel's porch after work, she noticed a man standing near the mailbox. He wore a clean jacket, slacks, and a look of hesitation that seemed almost practiced. At first, she didn't recognize him. Then he turned. Emily stopped cold. It was Gordon Hale, the landlord who had changed the locks. The man who had watched her stand on the sidewalk with 2 children and said nothing. Her chest tightened. Old anger surged up fast and sharp, stealing her breath. "I didn't know you were living here," Gordon said awkwardly. "I've been trying to find you." Emily's hands curled into fists. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice flat. Gordon swallowed hard. "I read about you," he said. "A friend from church sent me a link. Your story. The walking, the kids, everything." Emily's jaw tightened. "And?" Gordon lowered his gaze. "I haven't slept since," he said quietly. "I can't stop seeing you standing there, asking me for time I refuse to give." Emily felt her heart pounding in her ears. "You took our home," she said. "You watched my children cry." "I know," Gordon said, his voice breaking. "And I will regret it for the rest of my life." He took a step back, as if giving her space. "I didn't come here expecting forgiveness," he continued. "I came to say I was wrong, and if there's anything I can do to make it right." Emily felt the weight of the moment settle onto her shoulders. This was the test. Not hunger, not exhaustion, not the road. This. Her mind filled with images. Noah limping, Lily crying, the night under the bridge. The part of her that had survived wanted justice, wanted him to feel what she had felt. Then she remembered the voice in the church. Sometimes carrying, sometimes beside, always closer. Emily took a slow breath. "What you did hurt us," she said steadily. "It changed our lives." Gordon nodded, tears forming. "I know." Emily closed her eyes briefly. "But holding on to that hurt won't give us back anything," she continued. "It will only keep me on the road longer." She opened her eyes and looked directly at him. "I forgive you," she said. The word surprised even her. Gordon broke down. He covered his face, shoulders shaking, the weight of guilt finally released. "Thank you," he sobbed. "Thank you." Emily didn't feel triumphant. She felt free. That night after the children were asleep, Emily sat alone in the quiet living room. Doubt crept in. Did I forgive too easily? Was it fair? And then, gently, unmistakably, peace returned. Forgiveness hadn't erased the pain, but it had broken its power. And for the first time since the road, Emily understood something new. Some miracles don't change circumstances. They change hearts. Life didn't become perfect after that. Bills still arrived. Work was still tiring. Some days Emily's body ached in ways that reminded her she had walked farther than most people ever would. But something inside her had changed forever. A few months later, Emily and the children moved into a small apartment of their own. It wasn't much. 1 bedroom, old carpet, thin walls, but it was safe. It was theirs. Noah started first grade. He became known as the quiet boy who helped others without being asked. Lily filled the apartment with laughter, singing to herself as she played, her memory of the road already fading. Emily continued working at the laundromat. Word spread quietly, first through church, then through the neighborhood. People began to talk about the woman who had walked more than 20 miles with 2 children, about the kindness she showed even after being hurt, about the peace that seemed to follow her wherever she went. One afternoon, a young woman sat down beside Emily while she folded towels. "I heard your story," the woman said, her voice shaking. "I don't know how much longer I can keep going." Emily stopped folding. She listened, and then, gently, she told the truth. She spoke about the hunger, the fear, the night when her strength ran out, and the moment she realized she wasn't walking alone. The woman cried. So did Emily. After that, it happened again, and again. People came with different problems, lost jobs, broken marriages, sickness, grief, but the same exhaustion in their eyes. Emily never pretended to have answers. She simply told them what she had learned. Sometimes God doesn't remove the road, she would say. Sometimes he walks it with you. On the anniversary of the journey, Emily returned to the church alone. She sat in the same pew, sunlight spilling across the floor just as it had that first Sunday. She closed her eyes and smiled. I kept my promise, she whispered. I told the truth. She didn't see him this time, but she felt him, steady, familiar, near. At home that evening, Lily handed Emily a drawing she had made at school. 3 figures stood holding hands: Emily, Noah, Lily. And beside them, slightly taller, dressed in white, was another figure. Who's that? Emily asked softly, though her heart already knew. Lily smiled. That's the man who walks with us, she said. He never leaves. Emily hugged her tightly, tears filling her eyes. Years later, when people asked how she survived, how she carried her children farther than her body should have allowed, Emily always answered the same way. I didn't, she said. I was carried. And if you were to ask her today what she believes most deeply, she would tell you this. Everyone walks their own version of those 36 kilometers. Some walk them in silence, some in fear, some believing they are completely alone, but they're not. If you are walking a road that feels too long, too painful, too heavy to finish, remember this. He walks beside you. And when you can't take another step, he will carry you. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who's walking their own impossible road. And if you want to hear more faith-inspired stories that remind us we're never alone, subscribe to Heaven Walks with Us. Leave a comment below and tell us, what are your 36 kilometers right now? You're not alone. You never have been.